for those of you who are seeking to heal from codependency. And codependency is a loss of selfhood. Codependency implies that I don't know who I am. It implies that I will give up my sense of agency to make sure that you're happy. Codependency implies that I feel like people are smarter than me. Codependency implies that I believe that other people, for whatever reason, are more valuable than me. Codependency implies that without you, I don't have a sense of self. Codependency implies that my default mode network, when I'm not engaged in new activities, when I'm not engaged in new learning, hi Colleen, when I'm not engaged in doing something that I'm not used to doing, it implies that my default mode network in my brain is going to ruminate about and think about and daydream about memories. It's going to daydream about things that have happened to me in the past that are painful. That's why we can't separate childhood trauma from the default mode network of the brain, and also self-perception. So the middle part of the brain is all designed, and parts of the posterior and the prefrontal lobe also are tied to how we perceive the self. And so we're trying to understand codependency. At least this is what I teach. I do teach codependency from the point of inner child trauma. I want you to understand that you can't separate inner child trauma from codependency or even narcissistic abuse, because if you have childhood trauma, then you are not on the frequency of love and respect from others. You are on the frequency of feeling scared, feeling not good enough, and that's what you attract. We attract people who mirror that back to us. We attract people who do not treat us well. We attract people who violate our boundaries. They're nice to us in the beginning, and then the little girl and the little boy in us falls for that. The inner child falls for that. And so what I try to do is help people heal and really develop agency over themselves, so that the adult in them is showing up in the relationships. And so someone just asked, is codependency just tied to love relationships? No. I've coached mother-daughters who are codependent, mother-son relationships. I've coached father-daughter relationships that are codependent. No, it's you could be friends and be codependent. So codependency basically means that you feel invisible, you feel not good enough. And as a child, you learn to cope with feelings of abandonment and powerlessness by dissociating from the self and looking at other people and focusing on other people. That's how you survived. What we don't realize, and I think trauma-informed recovery work is now saying, I've been saying it for a long time, that this is a pattern and this is a program. What I don't hear enough people saying in the industry or the niche is, yeah, but it's also a level of consciousness. So what I try to do in all my courses is what I do is that I help people understand there's trauma. It's arrested you at a certain level of consciousness. It's psychological. It's affected your developing ego, sort of like a flower, right? It develops in stages. So does the personality. And so your ego is going to be affected, or the perception of the person that you think you are is going to be shaped by these external experiences. And so when we're talking about childhood experiences, dude, like, it is the basis of everything. That is us. It is the basis of how we love, how we receive love, how we give love. Can we receive love? Can we give without expecting anything in return? Or do we give like a little girl or a little boy, hoping that, oh, they like me, it's going to come back, right? So are we loving from the little wounded boy, the little wounded girl? We have to figure this out, which is why I love Jung's psychology, because it's about introspection, and he speaks about archetypes, and he speaks about shadow work. And It's all the same thing. So when we're talking about inner child trauma and we're talking about emotional neglect, first of all, I think a big misunderstanding in inner child recovery work for us, not therapists, for us, is that, oh, because I wasn't black and blue, I didn't experience trauma. Wrong. Wrong. It's scientifically wrong. The fact of the matter is, if you grew up feeling invisible, your brain was affected, your hippocampus, your amygdala, your prefrontal lobe, it was all affected just as much as somebody who had a big T trauma. So that means that those of us who came from emotionally neglectful homes, it's time that we accept that just because we didn't get beat and we didn't have other forms of physical trauma does not mean the damage wasn't done. And the other thing that we have to get clear is that that doesn't mean I'm playing the victim. That means I'm telling the truth. Now, here's what you have to understand. Because codependence, we have cognitive distortions. And what I mean by that is that below the veil of consciousness, we believe things that are not true. We believe things that are not true. We believe that we need approval. No, we don't. We believe that if we feel a certain way about a toxic family, they have to agree with us. No, they don't. We believe that if we have an opinion, it should never be spoken about to anyone. Wrong. You have a right to talk about your feelings. You have a right to talk about your experiences. We believe that if our sisters and brothers have a different experience, that means that maybe we're making things up. No, it doesn't. We believe that we need permission from other people to have our personal story, and the truth is we don't. Now, when you come from a toxic family, there's usually the no talk rule, the no feel rule, the no think rule. Don't talk about it. You're not allowed to talk about anything that happens outside these four walls. I grew up that way. I was conditioned by my mother, don't you dare talk to anybody about what happens in this house. Now I realize, like, oh, wow. So I was being brainwashed to stuff my feelings and to repress what was really going on, right? And now I understand it was a form of control. So when we're codependent, we really have to understand that it's tied to childhood trauma. Now, it's tied to childhood trauma for a reason, because the little people that we were had very few resources. We couldn't run. We couldn't hide. We could just dissociate, but eventually we had to become hypervigilant, and we had to focus on what was happening outside of us. And so we had very few options as 2-year-olds. Now, what I want everybody to understand is that the decisions that you made at 2 years old are affecting you today. Why? Because the patterns and programs that are running your life occurred when you were the most powerless and defenseless. Pretty crappy, right? To think that, wow, the way I experience love and the way I experience myself today is through the lens of that 2-year-old who felt so powerless and defenseless. Yeah, that's true. And if the value that I have in myself is tied to the value or lack of value that my mother or father saw or didn't see in me. Yes, that's true. It's pretty crappy. It's sobering. But that's what healing is all about. It's sobering. It's coming out of the paradigm. It's coming out of the program. It's understand that hypervigilance is an activation of the default mode network. And you have to teach yourself how to reduce the activity in the default mode network. Now, I love the brain science, and I teach brain science in all my classes, and my clients love it, and the students love it. And I think it's because it's like, oh, I'm not crazy. I'm like, no, it was supposed to be this way, right? Oh, I'm not broken. No, you're not broken. You mean my brain is doing exactly what source, God, creator, whatever you want to call infinite intelligence, it's doing exactly what it was designed to do? Yes. So the default mode network is the part of the brain that's active when you should be at rest. Like when you're vacuuming or you're driving to the mall for the 1000th time and you really don't have to think about where you're going. Who's driving the car? Your subconscious mind is driving the car. The default mode network is driving the car. But so is your inner child. That's the whole point. So when we find ourselves ruminating about the past, right? The default mode network has come online. Now, those of us who have a hyperactive default mode network, we are codependent because we're always worried about what the other person thinks. So in other words, it's like we're at dinner and we're worrying about what the other person thinks about us and how we're eating, right? What are we eating too fast? Are we talking with our mouth open? So when you have a wounded inner child and you come from complex trauma, the default mode network in your brain doesn't shut off. It's constantly searching the environment for a threat. Healthy people, or I should say healed people, who have pulled away from the toxic family, who are now in a support group or who are now on the healing and recovery path, and they're doing that work, setting the boundaries, holding on to themselves, learning how to think about the way that they think, learning how to flow their focus, learning how to emotionally regulate, learning how to decide and decipher with the spirit of discernment, who can they trust, who can't they trust. Once you pull yourself away from that, you have an opportunity to slow down the default mode network. Now, the reticular activating system is the part of the brain that is listening to you nonstop. The reticular activating system is paying attention to what Colleen is paying attention to, what Charles is paying attention to, what Mary is paying attention to. So it is our focus is programming the reticular activating system, and that's an issue because my brain works for me, for the little voice in my head. Now, the little voice in my head is my inner child. It's Amy the amygdala and Harry the hippocampus. It's not my higher self. So we cannot escape the multi-layers of healing that there are. We can't just put complex trauma in a vacuum and just talk about complex trauma and not talk about codependency. We can't talk about complex trauma in a vacuum and not talk about childhood programming and the default mode network, the reticular activating system. We can't do that because it doesn't work. We can't talk about complex trauma and not have a conversation about higher intelligence or emotional intelligence, right? We can't have that conversation because we need to include this idea of consciousness in the complex trauma arena. Why? Because it finally gives us the ability to observe what was wrong from a higher state of consciousness. Now, in the higher state of consciousness, I am a detached observer. I'm observing what's happening in the subconscious field. And only from this new state of consciousness can I fix anything. For instance, early on in the 12-week Breakthrough Coaching Program, I teach my students that they have to start thinking in a non-codependent way. And many times it's like, I don't even know how to not think like a codependent. Exactly, because that's your childhood programming and that's not your fault. Your brain can only play with the tools that are in the shed. So when we eliminate shame and we teach the students, it could be no other way. You're not broken. Your brain is doing exactly what it was designed to do. Look for a threat, avoid a threat. So we avoid threats by dissociating from the self, detaching from our emotions, escapism, and focusing on other people. But we're destroying our lives. So when we're destroying our lives, it is us not being in touch with who we really are. Because if you want to live a meaningful life, you have to get to that part of you that is the real you, that's beyond the pain and beyond the trauma. Then you can live a meaningful life. And the great news is that we have been endowed with this thing called consciousness, and we can achieve it. I've done it. It's taken me, oh my goodness, probably 10 years to get here. And I've been teaching it ever since. But I learned the hard way. So I teach people the easy ways. And this video, for instance, is just, it's a collection of 30 years of wisdom that I've gained the hard way. Like, oh wow, it was never me. It was just my programming. I was never broken. It wasn't my fault. It could be no other way. My brain was responding appropriately to the craziness of my toxic home. Yes, codependency was a coping skill. Yes. So being a people pleaser was my way of avoiding pain. Yes. So that's actually a good thing. So my inner child actually took care of itself correct. So people pleasing, enabling, not setting boundaries, they're all a product of a coping strategy. Why? Because when I was a little girl, I learned that if I tried to set a boundary, I was criticized, or I was mocked, or my mother didn't talk to me, or she gaslit me, or maybe I got hit with the belt. So, of course, on a subconscious level, my brain is processing trillions of bits of data per second. And part of what I have to process through my five senses is what happens when I do this. So your brain learns very quickly, and it learns best through pain. So I learned that if I spoke up, there was a painful consequence. And so what did my brain learn? Don't speak up. So now in not speaking up, I don't challenge myself. I have this distorted belief as a codependent. It's not good to speak up. It's wrong to speak up. I have to seek approval. I have to take care of other people. And who do I attract? Narcissists into my life. Because narcissists demand that I take care of him or I take care of her. Narcissists demand that I focus on them. So, of course, I don't have a voice because my voice threatens my beingness. So below the veil of consciousness, right? Below the veil of consciousness, coming from a toxic family, I have been brainwashed to dissociate from my true self as a means to survive. Now, if I can somehow honor that little girl inside of me that has a voice, or that little boy inside of me that has a voice, if I can learn to honor that child's pilgrimage and that inner child's journey from a higher state of consciousness, and I can control the default mode network, I can control the reticular activating system, I can control the flow of thoughts into my mind, then I can heal. So Angela just said, I have CPTSD. I'm a magnet to narcissists and sociopaths. It's been so hard. I hope I can get her comment back up. It's so hard, but I'm no contact with my last narcissist. Well, that's good. And you're right. So, dear one, if you have CPTSD, you are going to be a magnet for narcissists. You are going to be a magnet for sociopaths and psychopaths. You are. Because complex trauma means that you're in a survival state. You're not operating from your authenticity, and you're very much disowning yourself to maintain the peace. So we have to figure out how to get you to a place where you understand the difference between thinking and feeling like a codependent and thinking and feeling like a non-codependent. So it could be as simple as, when I go out to dinner, I'm going to pause, and rather, when I hear my default mode network and all the memories of the past and the fears of the past, the default mode network represents the narrative of the inner child, the inner conversation. When I hear the inner conversation play, right, I am not going to allow that to control me. I'm going to switch gears. I'm going to stay present. Now, when you stay present, the default mode network goes down. It's like the inner child's narrative goes, it softens. And suddenly, in that space, you have awareness. Now, in that moment, you're finally anchored to your true self. You have to be taught how to do this. It's not your fault that you don't know how to do this. They haven't even been teaching us in therapy I didn't learn this in therapy. I learned this on my own. So, but we have to teach people that the people in my class, they learn this and they teach their children, they teach their friends, they teach whoever will listen. They become like whistleblowers, like, hey, this is how we do this. This is how we can recover. So it's just beautiful. And so what we're trying to learn how to do is slow down the inner narrative. So in that moment, we can hear the self. And in that moment, I can say to myself, no, I'm not going to worry about what my husband thinks about what I'm going to eat today, because a codependent wife would. Today, I'm going to stay in my own head. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask myself, what on this menu jumps out at me? What is on this menu that I really feel like eating? And then I'm going to take a moment, because the default mode network has been quieted down through awareness. And then I'm going to ask myself, what about this menu actually jumps out at me? What would make me feel good? Then I'm going to order it. And I'm not going to worry about what anybody else thinks about what I'm ordering. You see, when you have childhood trauma, when you have complex PTSD, the default mode network is running rampant. And we can see it on a brain scan. People with complex PTSD, certain areas of their brain are lit up when they should be in a relaxation phase. So that's why all my programs, everything I offer, comes with meditations. So the meditations calm down the default mode network, and awareness is expanded, right? So it's so important. Like we've had meditation over here in one niche, and we've had mindfulness over here. We've had the study of consciousness over here. We've had the study of complex trauma here, and codependency over here, narcissistic abuse recovery over here. It's all the same thing. If you were raised by narcissistic parents or even codependent parents, you grew up feeling unseen. So if you begin to meditate, right? If you begin to meditate and you don't give up, right? If you don't give up, then you slow down the inner narrative. The default mode network starts to relax. Now, if you had a happy childhood, there's no problem with the default mode network, because when you're ruminating about happy stuff, and you're using your imagination to do, to think about happy things. You're using your imagination to figure out a goal and move forward. You can actually be taught how to do that, but it takes time. That's why the first program that people opt into is 12 weeks long, and it sounds like a long time, but trust me, it goes fast. It goes so fast. And people love learning week after week after week. Oh, I can do this, I can do this. Yes, you can. This is how you do it. And so I just really wanted to come on and say a few things about, you can't separate inner child trauma from complex trauma. And you can't separate being the adult child of an alcoholic or the adult child of a narcissistic parents from codependency or narcissistic abuse, because codependents will attract narcissistic people. And I can keep going. I could keep going because, oh my gosh, I could just keep going. Because codependency implies that we have wounds. And until we learn how to go into those wounds and heal them through our own consciousness, we attract people who activate those wounds. Like people say, oh, my sister triggered me. Your trigger is your teacher. Your trigger is your teacher. And you know what? There's nothing wrong with being codependent. And I would rather be codependent than a narcissist, quite frankly, because codependents have the opportunity to heal. They can be introspective, where when we're thinking about narcissists cannot deal with introspection. They do not feel guilt. What they feel is anger. They reject guilt. They push it into their shadow and they reject it. So the shadow is neither good or bad. The shadow is the part of the human psyche that we refuse to accept. So let's say you're somebody, let's say that you think you might be gay, right? But your culture is like, no, you're not allowed to be gay. So you will repress that part of you that feels attracted to the same sex. You'll push that into your shadow because you're denying it. So with a narcissist, they live in their shadow self. So if you have a narcissistic parent and when you cried, it annoyed them. They had no empathy for you. Right? And when you cried, and maybe they started to feel something for you, but because they can't process it, what they do then is that they get angry and they rage at you. And in that process, they're operating from their shadow. I don't have patience for this child that's crying. So what happens? The narcissistic parent, through their shadow, creates a shadow in you as the future codependent. So you have future codependents who are recognizing that they are unworthy in the face of the person that they love more than they love anything. And so that's how a narcissistic parent passes their shadow down to a codependent parent. And so that's why I love this idea of blending all of these ideas, understanding that the inner child recovery work, complex trauma recovery work, addiction work, right? It's like 90% of people with complex trauma, 90%, I think it might even be higher, 93% of people who struggle with addiction have childhood trauma. Of course they do. They're trying to escape their pain. That's not their fault, duh. And it works, When I drink, I don't feel my pain. The brain is designed to not feel pain. But there's a better way to heal people of this human suffering, and that's to teach them how to use their brain in a way that makes sense to them, that addresses the logical side of the brain, the left side of the brain, as well as the right side of the brain, which is the emotional side of the brain, right? So, and then we also have to understand that stress will destroy the corpus callosum. And so, yeah, if you're in a high level of stress because default mode network is activated all the time, and you're hypervigilant, you're imagining what if this happens, what if that happens, and you don't know how to not think like a codependent person, and you just keep thinking like a codependent person, you're just going to keep attracting narcissistic people. You're going to keep trying to figure out how to please them, how to please them, how to please them. You'll have emotional hangovers for weeks. Like, you will not feel good for weeks, dear one. I've been in that situation. It sucks. It's no place to be. A complex trauma response is terrifying. Your ears start to burn. You can go deaf. Your head gets extreme brain fog. You can't think. You can't speak. Sometimes you even get tunnel vision. I know that that's what happened to me. So it's important that we realize that we cannot separate childhood experiences from who we are as an adult. If you are codependent, that means that you are not operating with authority and sovereignty over yourself. And that's very sad. And that's exactly what a narcissist wants. Whether it's your neighbor or a partner or a narcissistic child even, it is the way it is. If you don't operate with sovereignty over your true self, then what happens is you keep attracting the same energy beings of the parents who wounded you, and you repeat the cycles from the past. It's just so sad, and it doesn't have to be that way. So I hope what you hear me saying is that you don't have to be codependent, that if you are codependent, then that's not your fault. And if you want to heal it, you can. And also, yes, there's a lot of overlap in cluster B personality disorders, and there is narcissism in borderline personality disorders. So cluster B is borderline and it's narcissism. But cluster B is very much tied to abandonment. So the borderline symptoms and the borderline traits have to do with severe fear of abandonment and an ego that's just trying to survive and gets caught in a fight or flee, freezing response or a fighting response. They're getting caught in a trauma response. So it's sort of like a record, though I'm dating myself, but it's sort of like a record that gets stuck. It just keeps getting stuck. So we'd have to help somebody with borderline heal the abandonment wounds and also the concepts of self that a borderline person has adopted through the trauma experience. You see, there is nothing I don't believe that can't be healed when people start to organize their mind from the ground up, meaning I'm enough. I was always enough. What happened to me is not my fault. What happened to me and how my brain responds is actually appropriate considering the level of abandonment and abuse I suffered as a child. I was a little kid, right? I was a little kid. So, yes, and Light just said, yes, there are, you can go read the comment sections. They happen too fast on my phone. But you're so right. There are people with psychopathy that have brain anomalies and they're born that way. But I personally believe that many narcissists are created due to narcissistic injuries. And there is such a thing as healthy narcissism. In other words, like for me to turn on this camera and say, I think I'm going to do a live stream today because I have a little bit of time, I have to have some level of this is me, this is I am, this is my YouTube channel, this is what gets me excited about getting up in the morning. You know, reaching people who are stuck in the quagmire of the past and inspiring them to believe that their brain has the potential to help them heal. And that consciousness can help them heal. That meditation can help them heal. That a framework that has helped thousands of other people heal can help them heal. I get excited about that. And Jung said it best. I'm probably going to screw it up, but Carl Jung said that there is no more noble an act for a human being to take than to go within. Because when I go within and I handle my shadows, I save you and the world tremendous darkness. Tremendous darkness. And so if you think about, I started this, I've always been into self-help recovery work. So it started about 30 years ago when my son was like 5 years old. and really looking within. And so now he's 36, so it's like 31 years that I'm thinking about really healing myself. 40 years, but the first 10 years it was like Frankensteinish. I didn't even know what the hell I was looking for. But over the years, it's like, wow, I get it now. Like nothing was my fault. And it was that first initiation, that first break when it came to love, when my mother rejected me, and through her depression and through her own issues. She was only 19, the poor thing, when she had me. I get it now, but when I was born, she was my mom. I didn't know anything about age. I just knew that my mother was rejecting me every chance she could, and that she had a certain face for me and a certain look for me. So I knew that. So that initial break from her is what severed me from self-love. And that's why I was disorganized. That's why I had eating disorder. That's why I had anxiety disorder. That's why I had panic disorder. That's why I had codependency disorder. Because I didn't have love. I wasn't anchored in love, because love is the anchoring spine of a human being. When you have love, you can do anything. When you have love, you don't make the world dark. When you have love, you make the world light. And so when I think about Carl Jung and what he says about looking within, and Rumi, the great Persian poet, look within. Oh my God, you just keep going. Marcus Aurelius, let it go. You can't control it, let it go. All of these great thinkers. David Hawkins, if you haven't read David Hawkins, highly recommend him. Joseph Campbell, The Hero's Journey. I mean, even Shakespeare, all the world's a stage. Everybody wears a mask. You ain't kidding, Shakespeare or Billy. You ain't kidding. Everybody wears a mask. And so codependency is a mask. It's a false mask. And it's wonderful to come out of this and realize, wow, I did my inner child work, shadow work, codependency recovery work, call it whatever you want, narcissistic abuse work, whatever. It's basically all the same thing. It's all comes from feeling not good enough. It's all comes from feeling unworthy. And when you are out of alignment with love, your personality does not develop in a healthy way. It develops for survival, and that's not your fault. And if we look, we are not built to live that way forever. We're supposed to be stressed and then come back down. But when you're codependent, you're stressed all the time. That's why I ended up with asthma, migraine headaches, and rashes, and that's why we get things like rheumatoid arthritis or lupus or MS, right? So it's what we have to think about. So if I'm removed from love, then, and that was the first order of business. That was the first milestone that I was supposed to meet as a human being whose mind should have organized according to love first, right? So if I don't achieve that milestone and I don't feel safe, then my brain, the neural pathways in my brain are going to be very short. That's why we say she has a short fuse. I'm going to have very thin skin, right? Why? Because I'm going to be reactive. Why? Because when I came here, I learned that it wasn't safe. I learned that I had to look outside of myself, right? So I started wearing a mask by the time I was 2 years old. I could see it in baby pictures. I was wearing a mask by 2 years old. I knew there was something up with my mother. I didn't have her love. And I knew that I had to walk on eggshells. So I started wearing a mask at 2. And then my father only wanted to see me happy. So I wasn't allowed to be upset. So I've been wearing masks a long time. And then I married my ex-husband thinking I was doing the right thing. I really thought, I'll just love him. I'll just love him. I'll just love him. Right? I'll just take care of him. How could it go wrong? That was my thought. How crazy is that? All I have to do is love this man and be selfless, anticipate his needs, and we'll be happy, right? No, he was happy. I was miserable after 12 years, right? And that's not his fault. So I was separated from love very early. That's why I didn't love myself. How can I love a self that I don't know I have? How can I love a self that my own mother rejected? Doesn't make logical sense, right? For a little kid, it doesn't make sense. As an adult, I can look back and say, I was always love. We come from love. It's not your fault or my fault that you didn't feel loved. That's not your fault, but that's where things went awry. that initial break from love. And what's really great is we can return to love. I promise you, you can return to love. But, dear ones, it takes everything you've got, because when you start looking within, you face your shadows. And then the natural human brain wants to do what it always does. The ego wants to do what it always wants to do, right? The ego wants to run from the pain. I've splintered it off for myself for a reason. I don't want to feel it. So in terms of shadow work, so I repressed, this was tremendous. I'll share this with everybody. I suppressed my need for love. I suppressed my need for approval. I thought it was terrible that I needed approval. It's not terrible to need approval. It's if you're married to the right person, right? If you're married to the right person, you have natural approval. You're not fighting for their approval. They give it to you naturally. So when I finally faced that shadow, which my mother made me feel ashamed of, that's why I rejected it into my subconscious mind. I'm not a needy person. I'm not a needy person. I don't need anyone. I don't want anybody to see me as a burden. She made me afraid to be human. She made me afraid to say, I need this or I want this. She made me afraid of it. And so I pushed it away and it became part of my shadow. So now I'm perfectionistic. Now I do everything on my own. Now I'm a lone wolf. Now I resent needing people. Why? I haven't unearthed this inside of myself. That's the beauty of codependency recovery work. And so when I finally got to a point when I was manifesting my husband, Anthony, we've been together 15 years now. It's amazing. I remember saying, I have to admit that I want a man with empathy. I stopped suppressing that I need a man who's kind. I stopped thinking that was selfish. So I brought that shadow version, that shadow layer to the surface and said, no, I'm going to admit, I'm going to dance with this need for validation. I'm going to dance with this need for connection. I'm going to dance with this need for this person's attention. I'm going to dance with the need to need him in a healthy way, right? I'm going to dance with the need to believe that I am worthy of respect. I'm going to dance with this. I'm not suppressing it anymore. Codependents have a lot of shadows. They do, because our parents have taught us that it's bad to want. It's bad to speak up. It's bad to want validation. It's bad to want to be affirmed. No, it's not. It's freaking human. And if you're with the right people, they naturally affirm you. If you're with the wrong people, they put you down. They take from you, right? Narcissistic families like a pack of wolves. They've got like this cult mentality, right? So that if they have a scapegoat, usually the person who tells the truth, they all band against them and they want to rip their skin, right? Sarcasm, the real meaning of sarcasm is to pull at your skin, right? That's not funny, to put people down. But you have to put up with it in a narcissistic family, right? And then if you say anything, you're the crazy person. You're the nut job. When you finally say, I don't want this. I want to be around a loving family. That's the only way that the universe can welcome it in. Because as long as you keep suppressing what you desire and what you deserve, it's like you're putting a hand up to the universe. It can't come in. And it was when I stopped thinking about what everybody else thought, right? When I started saying, I don't give a flying F what everybody else wants. This is what I want. This is the type of man that I want. This is the type of relationship that I want. And I am worthy of it, right? Because I'm willing to give it. I'm not going to give anything to anyone that I'm not willing to give. But I'll be damned if I'm going to live this entire life experience and keep attracting that. I'm not doing it. My father's love was not enough. It's dysfunctional. My mother's love was not enough. It was dysfunctional. I'm sorry, but my siblings, I don't see unconditional love there either. So it wasn't enough for me. And I decided I'm gonna make it happen. I'm gonna prove to myself that I'm worthy of it. And if I can do it, anybody can do it. Anybody can do it. But it is a matter of, you have to acknowledge the family stuff. You have to acknowledge what it was like for you as a child. And it's not you playing a victim, it's you learning to honor your truth. Your body knows the truth. You can deny it all you want, but your body keeps the score, right? Right? So this is the issues that we have. Your body remembers, and when you step into the honesty of it and you embrace the truth, that's when you can heal. If you don't do anything, dear one, people say, oh, if nothing changes, nothing changes. Actually, that's wrong. If you don't do anything, everything gets worse. Why? Because quantum laws are absolute. What you ignore rots, and it gets worse. And so codependency, in the latter stages of codependency, it's disorienting. Like you become someone you don't even know. You become someone you don't even know. In the latter stages of codependency, you could have suicidal ideation. In the latter stages of codependency, you can develop an addiction. In the latter stages of codependency, you can go out and like have affairs and not even know, how did I do this? Like who's having these affairs? Your shadow. You've suppressed so much, it can't hold anymore in your field, and you start acting out everything that you've suppressed, that you don't feel like you can deal with one by one by one. And so I highly recommend that if you resonate with my work and you think you may be codependent, you can go to my website and take the free codependency quiz. We also have, we just revamped the entire website, so there might be a kink or two in there, but I promise I'm on it. I am on it. I want people to go to my website. I want them to feel soothed. I want them to be able to find the free resources. I want them to be able to go from one blog post to another blog post. I want them to be able to access the podcast. And if they want to opt in to take a training, one of my trainings, I want it to be a very easy peasy experience for you, because we tend to get very anxious as codependents when things don't go according to plan, and we give up because we can't take the stress of it. I get that, and that comes from the anxious attachment style that we often have. And so I wanted to make sure that the website was far more pleasing and far more consistent. So if you go to my website, you can download the codependency quiz. Well, you can actually take the quiz and you'll get like a PDF of the results. You can take the on-demand codependency presentation that's available right now. What else do we have? I think we have the codependent commandments that are available for free. Just go to my website, go under free resources, and I think we have 3 or 4 free resources for you. And of course, you have my YouTube channel. And if you want to work with me, for the 12-week breakthrough coaching program, sorry about that. My daughter tried to call me right there. We do have payment options for the 12-week breakthrough coaching program. And for those of you who have already taken the 12-week breakthrough coaching program, we have the 8-week masterclass. And that's where I teach you. I can't teach you about how to master your emotions and flow your emotions with a more focused awareness until I teach you how to separate from your programming. You have to gain some brain control and some mental resiliency and emotional control of your thoughts first before we can teach you step 2 or level 2. And then after you take level 2, which is a masterclass, that's when you can elevate yourself into Soul School, which is a 10-week course in the quantum science of love consciousness. That's where if you will liberate yourself from your narcissistic family, from your codependent family, they won't even recognize you. They will be a fart in the wind. You won't even think about them anymore. Like, you will have so much more self-love. You will have so much more mental resilience. You will have so much soulful integrity. You will have all the tools that you need to feel one with everything, because you are. What's hurting you is you feel separate from everything. What's the initial separation, though? The initial separation was from you and mother, or you and father, or you and your family. That hurt you the most. So the original separation is separation from the love of family, feeling like you belong. And that separated you. So get this, dear ones, so separate from mother. Then there is, I don't have my stick figures, but anyway, you're separate from mother, and then you feel separate from self. Then you feel separate from others. And then your relationships start to fall apart, and then it affects the way you parent your children. It affects the way you relate to other people, and you start to feel more and more isolated from everything. That's the pain. We're human beings. We are an extension of everything. And in soul school, you learn to feel one with everything. It is so beautiful. So it's a process. I think Jung would call it the process of integration, the process of self-actualization. And we learn how to look at our own shadows without fear. We learn how to look at our shadows from a place of sovereignty and authority and higher consciousness. And we do it inside a closed group. And everybody is going through it at the same time, and it works. I'm very proud of it, and I'm humbled by it every time someone comes to the class and we do a Zoom call and they tell me about how it's helped them transform their life, because now they have a framework. Brilliant people. I mean, people have graduated from, Ivy League colleges. We have psychotherapists coming through the class, neuroscientists coming through the class. Like, oh, there, other life coaches, like, oh my God, I never had this framework before, right? I never had this framework before. So it does help. But I just had some time before I started cooking up my dinner here in New York. Rainy day. I don't know where it is where you are, but I hope you're toasty, and I hope that you're warm, and I hope that you're comfortable. And I hope that this little live stream made you feel less alone. And I hope that it made you feel more understood. And I hope that, you talking to other community members, like, you realize that you are not alone. And I hope that my story inspires you to believe that there is a way out. I don't want you to give up. There is a way out, dear one. But it is through first. It is through. Yes, I'm in Long Island, and it was raining all day today, but it looks like the sun's trying to come out today. So please don't give up, dear ones. It's not fair to you. It's not fair to your inner child. They had a crappy childhood. They had terrible experiences, right? Like, it's not fair to them to give up. Don't give up on your inner child. Don't give up on your inner child. Please don't give up on your inner child. The world needs the healed you. The world needs the healed you. I will be in Boone, North Carolina, May 16th to the 18th, giving an inner child retreat. If anybody's interested, you can actually go to my website or Facebook to learn more about that. Dear ones, you are enough. You are enough. You are enough. Follow me on Spotify, Breakdowns to Breakthrough. I'm here for you. I'm here for you. And I'm not going to give up. I'm not going to give up. I'll be doing this for as long as I can. Namaste as I bow to the love and light that is absolutely in you. I'm going to go call my daughter now. Bye, everybody. Bye. Whoops.